I was mopping the emergency hallway when the guy in the soaked denim jacket walked straight past reception and asked me, not the nurse, "Where's the morgue?" I remember my first thought wasn't, "Who the fuck is this?" It was, "How did he get in?" It was a Tuesday, 2 a.m., small town hospital, doors locked except the one he just slipped through. The kind of dead hour where the TV in the waiting room talks to empty chairs and you can hear the ice machine cycle. Nobody just strolls in then. His jacket wasn't rain wet. I noticed that right away. No drops on the floor, no shine. Just dark patches that clung to the denim and shined greasy under the fluorescent lights. He smelled like metal, thick and hot, like a handful of pennies you've been rolling between your fingers too long. My mop water suddenly smelled sweet and fake next to him. I said the usual, "I just cleaned floors." Automatic. I jerked my thumb at the nurse's station. He barely looked at her. He smiled without really using his eyes and said, "You've walked there." That line landed harder than it should have. Because he was right. I have walked there. That corridor is badge locked, tucked behind the service elevator. No sign that says morgue, just staff only. Visitors don't even see the door. I only go because I haul trash and dirty linen toward the back, past the heavy door with the little round window I never look through. You shouldn't have known that. Nobody pays attention to my route. Half the doctors don't even know where the morgue is. They just say send them downstairs, and someone like me deals with the bags later. I told him security had to escort him. I tried a soundboard, like this was normal. My heart was racing so hard I felt it in my jaw. I'd dealt with assholes before, drunk uncles pounding on doors, meth heads demanding meds. This wasn't that. Something in me just wanted him gone. He stepped in front of my cart, close enough that I saw skin under his nails, jagged like he'd clawed something. It looked packed in there, not dirt. Pinkish, dark in the cracks. His hand shook just a little like he was holding something back. "Show me," he said, "or I'll fucking find it myself." He didn't yell. That almost made it worse. He said it like it was already decided, like I was wasting time arguing instead of doing what he'd already planned for me. Behind him, I saw the nurse glance up. She frowned but didn't move yet. That pissed me off later, how slow everyone was. All those in-services about workplace violence, all the posters about "we've got your back," and when shit actually kicks off, everybody just watches. "Sir, you can't be back here," I said. My throat felt dry. "Security's gotta..." "Don't lie," he cut in. His eyes did this weird thing when he got close. One pupil was pinprick tiny, the other blown wide, black almost edge to edge. I've seen head injuries, oxy overdoses, all of it. This didn't look like that. It looked wrong, like someone had put two different people's eyes in one skull. I tightened my grip on the cart handle. My brain started doing this fast, stupid math. If I walk him there, what then? He pounds on the door, tries to break in, tries to see somebody, tries to get in with somebody. I pictured him tearing open a drawer and climbing in next to some bagged-up body, and I felt bile in my throat. "Back up," I said. "Now." He moved closer instead. I could feel warmth coming off him, but the air around him felt cold. That's the best way I can say it. My skin prickled and my stomach dropped. Up close, I saw a long scrape along his jaw, white at the edges, not bleeding much, like it had been done hours ago. His jacket collar was stiff. He dipped his head like he was smelling me. "You've been there," he murmured. "You already know the way." I don't know why that pissed me off so much, but it did. Maybe because it made me sound like I belonged with him in whatever fucked up mission he thought he was on. I pushed the cart into his knees and bolted for the code button by the nurse's station. Instinct. Zero thought. Just move. The cart slammed into him. Water sloshed out. Mop handle clattered. I heard him grunt, low and ugly, but he didn't go down. My sneakers slipped a little on the wet tile, and my heart jumped. If I fell, that was it. He'd be on me before anyone looked up from their charts. He grabbed my hood, yanked me back. The fabric bit into my throat, and the world narrowed. For a second, all I saw was the ceiling tiles and his arm over my shoulder. My windpipe pinched. I heard my own breath rasp, high and pathetic. His other hand clamped on my shoulder like a vice. Tom did that weird stretch thing. I remember thinking, stupidly clear, this is not how I go out, choked by some freak in a denim jacket. And then something in me snapped loose. I slammed an elbow into his ribs and hit the alarm with my palm. I didn't even turn, just flung my arm out sideways and prayed I'd hit the box. My elbow connected with something soft and hard at the same time, and he let out a sharp sound, half cough, half snarl. My fingers smashed into plastic. I felt the cover crack and then the button give. The siren went off immediately, a shrill, ugly scream that made my teeth hurt. He let go the second the siren wailed and sprinted toward the ambulance bay. No hesitation, no looking back, just full tilt down the hall like he'd timed it, like he knew exactly how long it would take for security to respond and wanted a head start. I spun around, gasping, hand on my neck. The nurse finally stood up, eyes wide. Doors opened up and down the hallway, sleepy faces peeking out, some patients shouting, "What's going on?" A resident poked his head out of a room in gloves and a mask, took one look, and ducked back inside. Security burst out from the side corridor, confusion on their faces, radios crackling. One of them yelled, "Sir, stop." The guy didn't even slow. He hit the push bar on the ambulance door with his shoulder, and the night air rushed in cold and black. That door was supposed to be locked at that hour. Every sign on it said so. It swung open like it had been waiting. They chased him out into the bay. I stumbled after, shaking, more out of stupid pride than anything. I didn't want to be the guy left cowering inside. The sirens still screamed overhead. The sound made everything feel unreal, like a drill. By the time we got outside, he was gone. Bay empty. No footsteps, no running figure. Just the echo of the door slamming and the distant hum of the highway. One of the guards swore and jogged farther into the lot, sweeping his flashlight over parked cars and the dark tree line. Nothing. I remember looking at the wet marks on the floor where his jacket had brushed the walls on the way out. They weren't red. Under the harsh lights, they just looked black. They sat me down in the staff lounge and pushed a cup of water into my hand like that fixed anything. My fingers left damp prints on the styrofoam. I kept smelling him, that metal stink, every time I lifted the cup. The cops came, took my statement. They wrote everything down in that bored way they have when they expect it to be paperwork and nothing else. One of them asked if maybe I'd misread his intentions. Like guys just casually choke people in hallways when they're stressed. It wasn't until the end of my shift, when I was changing in a locker room, that the same cop came back with a different face on. Tighter, less bored. He sat on the bench opposite me, hat in his hands, and said they'd found a truck. Pickup off the highway a few miles out. Smashed into a tree. No driver at the scene. Passenger side spiderwebbed with cracks from the inside. Front seat empty, but the back seat was soaked. Floor, upholstery, ceiling liner. One big dried pool of whatever had been in his jacket. They were still trying to figure out if it was all from one person. Or more. He asked if I was sure about the time. About what door he came through. About whether I'd seen any car lights when we ran outside. I said yes, no. My voice sounded thin in the little room. Driving home later, the radio low, I kept replaying his words. Not the threat. That first line. "You've walked there." "I have, yeah." Past the double doors, down that last stretch, to the cold room where we keep the ones nobody could save. I used to hate that part of my route. Now I take the other elevator and do extra laps if I have to. I don't go down that hallway alone anymore. The motion light always comes on a second too late, and I swear sometimes I catch the shape of a denim jacket just outside the edge of the glow. I know what everyone says. Head trauma, shock, adrenaline. Guy crashes his truck, wanders around confused, ends up at the hospital like some fucked up homing instinct. That's the version they write in reports. But none of that explains how he knew my route. None of that explains that door opening like it was waiting. None of that explains why, when I'm mopped near the ambulance bay now, the floor smells like metal for no reason at all. Whoever you were, stay the hell out of hospitals. Let's not meet. My first week driving rideshare, The app pinged a pickup outside a low-lit bar, 1:13 a.m. I remember the time because I just told myself, one more ride, then home, for the fourth time. Eyes burning, lower back screaming, half a tank of gas, and not nearly enough money to justify still being awake. That kind of night. The bar sat on the corner like a bad decision, sign flickering, a couple dudes smoking out front, that sour mix of beer and piss drifting through the cracked door. A woman in a red dress waved and hurried over, heels in hand. She almost slipped on the wet sidewalk, caught herself on the brick, then laughed at nobody. From behind the wheel, I saw mascara smudged under her eyes, lipstick smeared just off-center. One of those pretty girls who's already been out too long. In my head, I ticked it off. Okay, quick ride home. Tip if I don't hit any potholes, no drama. Then some guy yanked my back door open first and slid in like he owned the car. No hesitation, no hey man, nothing. Door flies open. He drops in, slams it shut. The suspension dips under him. I flinch because I'm still new and every loud noise makes me think I broke something. Name on the app, Lindsay. Name he gave me when I asked. Yeah, that's me, man, go. He said it fast, like he'd expected the question, like he'd practiced that exact answer. Didn't even glance at his phone. Just forward, jaw clenched, eyes on the windshield. He leaned into my seat back like he planned to stay. Lindsay was still on the sidewalk, staring down at her phone. That's what made my stomach twist. She stood there under the yellow light, dress bunched in one hand, heels dangling from the other, screen glow on her face. She didn't even look up when he took her ride. No awareness at all. The app picture showed a blurry shot of a girl with the same red dress, same hair. Everything lined up except the body in my back seat. The guy leaned forward, breath sour. Drive. She chickened out. His breath hit my neck, hot and stale, like beer and whatever the fuck he'd been chewing. His tone wasn't drunk sloppy. It was sober irritated. That's the part that bothered me. His words came sharp and clear, no slur, like he'd been waiting, like something just got in the way of his plan. The app showed the drop-off 20 miles out, near some industrial park. I zoomed the map out a little. I knew that area. Warehouses, trucking lots, busted fences, no houses. During the day, it's forklifts and diesel. After midnight, it's nothing. Just dead space between the city and nowhere. No reason for a drunk girl in a red dress to end up there unless she worked night shift at Bad Decision Manufacturing. I said I needed her to confirm the ride. I tried to keep my voice flat, professional, like I was just following rules. I gotta hear it from Lindsay, I said. Company policy. I even forced a weak little laugh like we were both stuck in the same stupid system. He hissed, "She's drunk, I booked it. Stop being difficult." He didn't yell. That somehow made it worse. It came out low and tight, that special tone guys use when they're about to lose their shit but don't want witnesses. I've heard it behind closed doors growing up. I heard my dad talk like that to my mom more than once. It flipped a switch in me. Up close, I caught more details in the mirror. Clean haircut, collared shirt, no coat in the cold. Watch that looked expensive. Not some random street creep. The kind of guy who thinks his job and clothes make him safe by default. The kind of guy people defend. He'd never do that. I canceled the trip instead and put the car in park. Thumb press, red button done. My heart pounded so hard I heard my pulse in my ears. On the screen, the route vanished. No more blue line to the middle of nowhere. Just my dot on a map, stuck outside that bar with a pissed off stranger behind me. He snapped, "You're throwing away money over this bitch." He spat that word out like it tasted bad. Not this girl, not Lindsay, just this bitch. I saw his eyes in the mirror when he said it. They flattened in this way I can't describe right, like someone turned down the human in him. I thought about how many times he'd said that about other women. I thought about how many people around him laughed or shrugged. Behind him, through the rear window, I saw Lindsay finally look up. Her face changed when she spotted him. 1 second, she's scrolling. Next second, her body locks up. She froze like a deer that hears a twig snap. I told him to get out, or I'd call the cops and report attempted fraud. My voice shook, but I didn't let it break. I tilted my phone so he could see my thumb hovering over the emergency button in the app. Get out now, I said. I'm not driving you. He stared, jaw grinding, then leaned close enough that I felt spit. Should have minded your business. But he stepped out. That moment hangs in my memory like a held breath. He could have swung at me. He could have grabbed the keys, tried to drag her in, turn the car into a cage. My hands were slick on the steering wheel, useless. Instead, he opened the door slow, climbed out, then folded himself down on my open window and got so close I smelled sweat under his cologne. When he said it, should have minded your business, a fleck of spit hit my cheek. He wanted that. A little mark. A reminder. He shut the door carefully. No Islam. Calm. Then he walked away, not back into the bar, not toward any other ride. Just down the block into the dark gap between two buildings, shoulders tight, hands in pockets. The kind of walk that promises, this isn't over, just postponed. As he stalked off, Lindsay finally looked up, saw him, and backed against the brick like she recognized him. I watched her shove herself flat against the wall, phone pressed her chest now. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. She kept her eyes locked on him until he disappeared. Then her gaze slid to my car, to the now empty back seat. She understood something had just almost happened, or maybe already had, on another night. She canceled a ride too. My phone pinged again. Rider canceled. Cute little chime, like it meant nothing. She didn't rebook. She didn't come over to thank me or ask what happened. She just shoved her heels on without buckling them and hurried around the corner, away from where he went, away from the bar door. Alone. No friends chasing after her. Just a red dress disappearing into the side street. I sat there with my hazards on, hands shaking, watching that corner like he'd come back out dragging her. The bouncer kept checking IDs like this was just another Friday. Other drivers pulled up, people piled in, cars rolled off. For them, it was just noise and neon. For me, the whole street felt off balance. On the way home, I killed the app. Couldn't take another ride. Every headlight behind me looked like his car. Every time a sedan stayed in my mirror more than a block, my chest tightened. I turned randomly, looped side streets like I could shake a ghost. In bed, I didn't sleep. I stared at the dark and ran the whole thing back in my head. His weight in the back seat, the industrial park on the screen, her face when she recognized him. The part that fucks with me is how close I came to just doing what he said. I almost drove. I heard that little voice in my head. Don't be dramatic. Don't lose a fare. It's none of your business. If I'd listened, nobody would know except me and him and whatever happened in some empty lot at 1:40 a.m. I checked the local news for days after. No missing girl that matched her. No body in a ditch by the warehouses. Nothing obvious, at least. So maybe she got lucky. Maybe she called a friend, sobered up, blocked his number, moved on. Maybe he just found another bar, another bitch, another driver who didn't hit cancel. I see her ride history still sometimes in my head. 5 stars. Great passenger, would drive again. Cute little comments under that picture in the red dress. The app makes everything look safe. Ratings, maps, profiles. It doesn't show what guys like him do with empty industrial parks and drunk women who can't stand straight. I still drive nights. Bills don't give a shit about my nerves. I keep my doors locked until I hear the name now. I double-check the profile picture every time, especially when a woman's name pops up and some dude tries to slide in instead. People roll their eyes when I push back. Chill, man, just drive. Yeah, no. I still wonder if he'd planned to help her get home. Dude, whoever you are, don't ever get in my car again. Let's not meet. On a boring Sunday in April, I went to Walmart for cat litter and cereal. That's it. I didn't even want to go out. I've been in sweatpants all day, doom scrolling and ignoring the smell from the litter box. Eventually, I just sighed, grabbed my keys, and told myself I'd be back in 20 minutes. Inside, it was the usual Walmart noise. Crying kid somewhere, carts banging, old rock song playing too loud. I opened my phone, pulled up my list, cat litter, cereal, coffee, trash bags, some cleaning stuff, and started walking like a robot on autopilot. I wasn't thinking about anything heavier than don't forget the stupid trash bags this time. I got to the pet aisle, wrestled the big-ass box of litter off the shelf, almost dropped it on my foot, and leaned it into the cart. While I scrolled my list again, I felt this presence right behind my shoulder. Not just someone passing, a steady shape, close enough that my skin tightened. Then a man's voice, right by my ear. Too cheerful for a gray Sunday. "Forgot the milk, didn't you?" It took me a second to realize he was talking to me. I glanced back and saw him looking down at my phone. Not my face, like my screen was the interesting part. My thumb automatically locked it and shoved it into my hoodie pocket. I did that awkward, polite half smile and moved the cart away. Because that's what you do, right? You don't make a scene, you just drift off like it's no big deal. My heart jumped a little, but my brain started the usual lecture. He's just being friendly. Relax, you're paranoid. I headed for produce, thinking about avocados and not about him. I started squeezing them one by one like some ritual, too hard, too mushy, too weird. I put one back, reached for another, trying to just be normal again. Then he was there. I didn't hear him walk up. He was just suddenly at my side, close enough that our sleeves brushed. He picked up the exact avocado I just put down, same spot, same angle, and pressed it like he was copying my moves. "You always overthink it like that," he said. My stomach twisted. Same too bright tone, like we were in the middle of an ongoing conversation I'd forgotten about. I muttered something like, "Guess so," and stepped away with empty hands. No avocado, no reason for leaving, just escape. I noticed his cart next. Actually, the lack of one. No cart, no basket, no items in his hands. Just him, in a huge store, on a busy day, following one person around with nothing to buy. That detail stuck in my head like a splinter. I went to the cereal aisle and tried to act like everything was fine. I stared at the shelves, pretending to compare sugar content while my thoughts ran in circles. I picked my usual boring cereal, put it in the cart, then changed my mind and swapped it for something stupidly sugary, like that would help. As I turned, he walked past the opening of the aisle. He didn't come in that time, just slowed down enough to look at my cart. His eyes flicked over the stuff like he was checking a list. I told myself I was imagining it. I've got anxiety. My brain likes to invent threats. I argued with myself under my breath. He's just another shopper. He has a right to be here. Don't be dramatic. Then another voice in my head snapped back. Okay, then where the fuck is his cart? I cut through the next aisle fast, the one with baking stuff I didn't need, just to see if he'd still show up. I stopped halfway, stared at some cake mix I'd never buy, and waited. 10 seconds. 15. I started to feel stupid. Then he turned into the aisle and walked toward me, empty-handed, hands in his hoodie pockets. No hesitation, no oops wrong aisle face. He didn't even look at the shelves. His eyes went straight to my cart again, then to my shirt, then to my phone bulging in my pocket like he could still see the list through fabric. He didn't speak this time, just gave me a small, tight smile and moved past me, close enough that I could smell his deodorant and stale sweat. My chest tightened all the way up into my throat. I should have gone to an employee right then. Said, "Hey, that guy's creeping me out." But I picture myself explaining it. He keeps following me, but he hasn't touched me. Hasn't said anything obviously gross, hasn't done enough. I picture the look, confused, maybe annoyed, maybe sympathetic, but stuck. I didn't want to argue my own fear in front of a stranger. So instead, I rushed to the coffee aisle, telling myself I'd grab coffee and cleaning stuff and get the hell out. In my head, I kept repeating, it's fine, he'll drift away. People do that. I reached for my usual coffee, that tiny piece of routine that makes mornings less awful. As my hand wrapped around the bag, his sleeve brushed mine again. I jerked like I'd been shocked. He stood right beside me, staring at the coffee in my hand. Then he hummed the brand name under his breath, this tuneless little murmur, dragging it out like he was tasting it. It sounded pleased. That's the only word I've got. Like he guessed correctly on a quiz. I shoved the coffee into my cart, nearly tipping it. My pulse pounded in my ears. He watched my hands, not my face. Like my decisions were the interesting part. I tested something. I pushed my cart past the rest of the coffee, then pretended to study the random stuff at the end of the aisle. I didn't move for a full minute. He stayed put too, leaning against a shelf, pretending to look at coffee filters while sneaking glances at my cart. It stopped feeling like coincidence and started feeling like an experiment I hadn't agreed to be part of. By the time I reached cleaning supplies, my nerves were fried. I grabbed dish soap without checking the price, yanked trash bags off the shelf, moved like I was in a time challenge. I felt him behind me again, that quiet pressure, and something in me snapped. I stopped. I didn't pretend anymore. I turned around and faced him. Up close, he looked aggressively average. Jeans, gray hoodie, shaved face, short hair. But there was something off in the way he held himself. Too straight, too still. His eyes were wide, but not surprised. Just alert, like he was absorbing everything. "Dude, back off," I said. My voice came out rough but clear. I held eye contact, even though every instinct told me to look away. He smiled. Technically, the corners of his mouth pulled up, but nothing else moved. His eyes stayed flat, unblinking. It looked like a face he'd practiced in the mirror. "Just seeing what you need," he said. The way he said need made my skin crawl. Like it wasn't the first word he'd tried in that sentence. Like he'd filled in a blank on a script. It wasn't illegal. It wasn't even clearly threatening. It was just wrong, like an uncanny valley version of normal human behavior. I didn't answer. If I kept talking, I was either going to cry or scream, and I didn't want to do either in front of him. I gripped the cart handle so hard my fingers hurt and pushed away. Straight line. No more shopping. No more pretending. I headed right for self-checkout, cutting around people, ignoring the things I planned to buy. Left half my list behind without even looking at it again. Every few steps, I fought the urge to look back and check if he was there. I didn't want to give him that. Somehow, at the machines, my hand shook so badly I almost dropped the litter box. The scanner beeped too loud. I scanned fast, didn't bother bagging neatly, just shoved things in wherever they fit. The self-checkout voice sounded chipper and fake and unbearable. While the card reader worked, I finally looked up. I didn't want to, but I did. He stood near the exit, just beyond the self-checkout area. Still no card. Still no basket. He bought nothing. He wasn't talking to anyone. He was just standing there, eyes moving from person to person, watching, studying. Then his gaze locked back onto me. For half a second, we were locked there, like a dare. He gave me that same practice smile again, tiny and off, then turned and walked out through the automatic doors. No hitty, no glance back. The machine chirped at me to take my receipt. I snatched it, grabbed my bags, and walked out with my heart still hammering. The parking lot felt too open and too empty at the same time. I loaded the car fast, tossed the bags in crooked, and got inside, locking the doors before I even put on my seatbelt. On the drive home, I took 3 different routes, turned where I usually went straight, circled an extra block, checked the mirror constantly. Rationally, I knew it was over. Irrationally, I kept picturing his face popping up in the rear view, watching what I chose next. When I finally pulled into my place and shut the door behind me, I leaned against it and just listened to my own breathing. Nothing had happened, not really. No touching, no threats, nothing I could write in a report. Just 30 minutes of having every choice watched by someone who felt like he'd downloaded How to Act Human from a shitty forum and came to Walmart to test it. Now I shop at weird hours, and I never write my list on my phone where someone can stand behind me. It wasn't paranormal. It was just someone rehearsing how to be around people. One winter, I took the same 7:05 a.m. bus to my office downtown. Same driver, same sad commuters. Then the man with the gray backpack started riding. The first time I noticed him was just because he stared too long. He got on 2 stops after mine, stomped the slush off his boots, and just stood there in the aisle while the bus moved, turning his head like he was counting us. Then his eyes landed on me and stayed. Not curious, not annoyed, just this flat, locked-on look. Then he walked straight to the empty seat across from me and sat like he'd reserved it. Gray backpack on his lap, both straps still on his shoulders. Next day, same thing. Same stop, same slow sweep of the bus, same seat directly across from me, even though there were tons of empty spots. After a couple days, it stopped feeling like chance. It felt like he'd picked me. He had this habit with the backpack that got under my skin. As soon as he sat down, he'd grab the front pocket zipper, open it halfway, stare into it like he expected something to move, then close it again. Then repeat. Slow. Zip. Pause. Zip. He never pulled anything out. Not a phone, not keys, nothing. Just opened and closed. People fidget, sure, but this didn't feel like that. It felt like he practiced it. I tried to just bury myself in my phone like everyone else. But every time the bus hit a bump or hissed at a stop, I felt his eyes flick to me. That burning, someone's looking, feeling gets pretty obvious after the 5th or 10th ride. My shoulders stayed tight the whole way into the city. The phone thing started maybe a week in. My phone buzzed, a calendar reminder. I tilted the screen up to check it, and I saw him tilt his head at the exact same angle, like we shared a hinge. His gaze didn't leave my screen. I told myself I was being dramatic. People peek. It's public. But the next morning I tested it. I opened a blank note, held my phone a little higher than usual, and started typing. Can you read this, you creepy fuck? I watched him in my peripheral vision. He leaned in just a hair, eyes locked on my screen. His lips moved. He actually formed the words, syllable by syllable, no sound, just shapes. When he got to fuck, he slowed down like he lingered on it. Then I locked my phone. His face went back to neutral, eyes on the bus floor like none of that happened. My heart jackhammered the rest of the ride. I got off 3 stops later with my palms slippery and my jaw clenched so hard my teeth hurt. At work, I try to laugh about it. Dude on the bus keeps reading my texts, I said in the break room. One coworker said, move seats, like it was that simple. Another said, public transit, man, what do you expect? I tried to explain the zipper, the way he always chose my row, the weird mouth reading. They shrugged. I could see in their faces, you're overreacting. You're being weird. So I shut up. Next morning, I changed seats anyway. I got on and immediately slid toward the back, other side of the aisle by the window. I kept my eyes on the smear glass and watched the reflections instead of the people. When the bus stopped at his usual stop, I saw him in the reflection before I saw him in real life. He climbed on, did the slow scan, and then his gaze snapped to where I sat. Something in his expression twitched. Annoyance? Satisfaction? I don't know. But he walked straight down and sat across from me again. Gray backpack. Up. Zipper. Zip. That was the moment I stopped being able to write it off as nothing. He hadn't just happened to sit near me. He'd hunted for me and corrected the route when I moved. So I turned my phone away from him, literally shielded it with my bag. I could feel his attention shift like a weight moving. I glanced at the window and saw what he'd figured out a second before I did. My screen reflected there, faint but visible. In the glass, I saw my own face, washed out and tired, and behind it his eyes focused not on me, but on the blurry glow of my phone in the reflection. He'd angled his head just enough to use the window as a mirror. Something about that made my stomach go ice cold. It wasn't lazy nosiness. It was effort. He was willing to work to see what I was doing. I started changing little things after that. Different coat some days, different bus if I could swing it. Sometimes I walked 2 extra blocks and caught a different line. It didn't always sync with my schedule, so half the time I still ended up on that same bus, same 7:05, same gray backpack. He was never early, never late. He never missed a stop after mine. I got hyper aware of everything. I counted how many times he pulled the zipper. I checked if he wore the same shoes. He did, for weeks. I watched his hands for tattoos, none. I made mental notes of dumb shit, like the way he sniffed hard every few minutes, like he had a permanent cold. It all made me feel like if something happened, at least I'd be able to tell the cops I'd paid attention. That's what I told myself, anyway. Truth is, I think I just needed to prove he was real and not some paranoid story I'd built in my head. The morning everything snapped was a Tuesday, snow falling sideways, that slushy gray mess that gets into your socks no matter what. I woke up with this wired feeling, like I'd already had 3 coffees. On the bus, he sat in his usual spot, and I could feel him watching even when I pretended to sleep. Halfway through the route, before my normal stop, I stood up. I didn't even think it through. My body just moved. I yanked the cord, heard the bell ding, and grabbed the rail. I felt his gaze hit the side of my face like a flashlight. The bus jerked to the next stop and pulled over. Doors hissed open. Cold air rushed in sharp enough to sting. I stepped down onto the snow without looking back and started walking the opposite direction from my office. My heart beat so loud it blurred out the traffic. Behind me, I heard movement. The bus doors closing, then opening again. Quick footsteps in the slush. I glanced at the reflection in the glass of a storefront and saw him hop off the bus. He hesitated for half a second, like he hadn't planned this part. Then he hurried after me. No attempt to be subtle. Backpack thumping against his chest. Everything in me said run, but running on icy sidewalks is asking to bust your skull open. So I speed walked and cut hard into the first open place I saw, a coffee shop. The warmth and noise hit me at once. Grinder whirring, milk steaming, some indie song too loud. I beelined for the counter, ordered whatever my eyes landed on, didn't even taste the name. My voice shook. The barista stared for a second, but didn't ask. I took my drink and planted myself at a small table near the counter, where she and the guy waiting for his latte could hear me if I screamed. Then I looked out the front window. He stood there, just outside, directly facing the glass. No bus behind him, no reason to be there except me. Snow clung to his hair and jacket. He didn't look at the menu posted in the window or pretend to check his phone. His eyes went straight to mine. He started pacing back and forth in front of the shop. Walk a few steps right, look at the door, check his watch, walk back left. Again and again. Every time he passed the window, he locked eyes with me, then flicked his gaze to the entrance, like he was rehearsing whether to come in. I wrapped my hands so tight around the paper cup the lid creaked. I ran through my options. Call someone, call no one, walk out, stay put. If he came inside, I'd be forced to either confront him or play dumb and pretend I didn't notice him. And I honestly didn't know, which scared me more. He never came in. He paced for maybe 10 minutes that felt like an hour, then checked his watch one more time and just left. Turned away from the shop and walked down the street, toward the direction I would have gone if I hadn't ducked inside. No bus, no reason, no glance back. Just gone. I sat there until my coffee went lukewarm and my feet stopped buzzing. I tried to gaslight myself, honestly. Told myself, you're not that special. He probably just needed the same stop. Maybe he liked that seat. Maybe he's harmless. But that's a hard sell when a stranger steps off his normal bus route to follow you to a random block and stand outside the place you hid. I changed buses after that. I shifted my schedule. Left earlier some days, later others. Some mornings I walked half the way and caught a different line just to feel like I had some control. I never saw the gray backpack again. That should have been the end, right? But it's not really about him anymore. The worst part is what stuck. Now on any bus, any train, I clock every person who gets on. I mark who stands too long, who scans too carefully, who keeps their bag too close. I angle my phone like I'm hiding state secrets. I track reflections without even thinking. My body decided that one winter that public means exposed, and it hasn't updated the memo since. To this day, I sit where I can see everyone, and I watch who watches me. This happened in 2019, up in a crappy rental cabin in northern Michigan. I'd gone alone to finish a freelance project. No Wi-Fi, no neighbors, just me and a stack of instant noodles. I was behind on the deadline, broke, fighting with my editor, and sick of everyone telling me to get a real job. So I grabbed the cheapest place I could find and drove north until my playlist ran out and the road went dark. The cabin looked like it was held together with regret and duct tape. Inside smelled like damp wood and old cigarettes. First sign something was off. The front door lock didn't line up right. I had to yank it hard to latch it, like someone had kicked it in before. The frame had splinters around one spot at shoulder height, like the same impact over and over. No deadbolt, just that loose knob and a sad little chain. I remember thinking, if someone really wants in here, that chain's gonna snap like thread. I still stayed. Rent was paid, gas was low, pride was stupid. First night, I worked late, ate noodles from the pot, drank warm beer, tried to ignore every creak. The woods outside pressed right up to the glass. You couldn't see a neighbor, just your own reflection and black behind it. No service on my phone, just that blank bar. I kept picking it up anyway, like it might magically connect if I stared long enough. The wind hit the walls, and the cabin answered with pops and groans. Eventually I crashed, shoes still on. Second night was worse. I dozed instead of slept. I'd drift off, then snap awake because something outside shifted. Not branches. Weight. Slow crunching in the gravel, like someone walking without caring if they made noise. A few steps, stop. A few more, stop. I lay there and told myself it was a deer or a raccoon or whatever, but my body didn't buy it. My heart kept punching. My muscles stayed tight like I was waiting for impact. Around 3, I sat up, grabbed my laptop, and worked until the sky lightened just so I wouldn't have to listen to that slow pacing anymore. Morning came, frost on everything. I stepped out, expecting to see tracks everywhere if some animal had wandered around all night. Nothing, just my own prints from when I'd first unloaded the car. The gravel on the side where I'd heard the steps looked undisturbed, frost smooth as glass. That bothered me. Animals I could handle. Nothing making those noises. That messed with me. But I still stayed. I kept telling myself I was tired, jittery, overreacting. During the day, I drove 10 minutes to this little pull-off where my phone caught one bar if I stood in the right spot. I sent files to my editor, skimmed his snippy emails, and called my mom. We argued right away. She worried about money, insurance, me hiding in some shack in the woods instead of growing up. I snapped, said something shitty, and hung up on her. The guilt sat on my chest the whole drive back. I thought about calling again, but told myself I'd do it after I got more work done. Night 3, around 1 a.m., I woke up to 3 knocks. Not soft, flat-knuckled, steady. They came from the front door. Not the wall, not the window, the door. I knew it instantly. I've been watching that stupid lock for days, making sure it was set, making sure the chair was still wedged under the handle. The sound went straight through the cabin, through the floor, and into my bones. I grabbed my phone. No service. The screen lit up my hands. They shook so hard I almost dropped it. I held my breath, listening. 3 more knocks. Same rhythm. Whoever it was didn't jiggle the handle, didn't call out, just knocked like they belonged there, and I was the rude one. My brain tried to come up with normal explanations. Owner checking on me. Wrong address, drunk hunter, but none of those people knock like that in the middle of nowhere at 1 a.m. without saying a word. Then my mom's voice came from the other side of the door, clear as if she stood inches from me. Honey, open up, you left your phone in the car. My pone was in my hand. That simple fact hit harder than the knocks. I stared at the screen, at the small cracks I knew by heart, at the reflection of my own freaked out face, and I felt my stomach drop like an elevator cut free. My mom was 2 states away. She doesn't drive at night. She would have called, texted, worried me to death before showing up unannounced at some random cabin. But the voice outside nailed everything. Her pitch, that tiny rasp on her R's, the way she stretches honey when she's tired. I didn't answer. Some deep animal part of me just shut my mouth for me. I slid off the bed as quietly as I could and crouched on the floor. The mattress springs squeaked a little and I flinched, staring at the door. The knock stopped. Silence for maybe 30 seconds. Then the voice again, same tone but louder like someone turned up a dial. Open the door. You're being rude. That's when it clicked fully that it wasn't her. My mom doesn't talk like that. She'd swear, joke, complain, anything, but she wouldn't say that sentence in that flat, practiced way. It sounded like something had listened to her before and was trying to assemble a polite mom line from scraps. I backed into the hall, then into the kitchen, blanket still wrapped around my shoulders like it mattered. I grabbed the first thing that looked like a weapon, a dull steak knife. Useless, but it gave my hands something to do besides shake. The whole time I kept my eyes on that door, waiting to see the knob turn or the chain pull tight. Nothing. No more knocks. No more voice. Just wind picking up again, roof creaking, trees brushing the siding. The normal sounds came back all at once, like someone hit play on the outside world. I sat on the kitchen floor, knife in one hand, phone in the other, legs going numb, and I stayed like that until gray light leaked around the curtain edges and the cabin started to show shape again. When I finally stood, my joints hurt like I'd aged 20 years in one night. I unwedged the chair, unhooked the chain, and cracked the door an inch. Cold air slapped my face. Nobody on the step. The clearing around the cabin looked empty and washed out. My car dusted with a fresh layer of frost. I stepped out and saw the prints. They ringed the cabin in a single, continuous path, pressed into the thin, white crust. Shoe prints, not boots. Tread clear, heel clear, even a small worn patch on one side where the foot dragged a little. They passed under my bedroom window, along the back wall, under the bathroom window, past the kitchen, back to the door. Then again, and again. No wandering, no zigzagging like an animal sniffing around. Just this obsessive loop right up against the building. They didn't lead to the road. They didn't come from the driveway. They just formed a circle around the cabin and stopped. I knew they hadn't been there the morning before. I'd stared at that same frost, trying to prove to myself I was alone. This time I took photos. Every side, every angle, my breath fogging the screen. I drove out to the pull-off where I could get a bar and called the owner. Sent him the pictures. Told him what I heard. Left out the part about my mom's voice because I didn't feel like getting diagnosed over the phone. He sounded bored. Said stuff like, "Those prints are old, they stick around when it's cold, and probably some kids messing around last week." I told him they follow my bedroom wall exactly, that they weren't there when I arrived. He kept brushing it off, called me jumpy and city type, like I was some scared tourist. They weren't old. They matched my stay exactly. And he knew it. I could hear it in the way his voice tightened when I mentioned the window. I packed up right after that call. Didn't even shower, just shoved my clothes into my bag, grabbed my laptop, tossed everything into the car. When I slammed the trunk, the sound bounced off the trees and came back to me hollow. For a second, I thought I heard that same flat-knuckled rhythm under the echo, and I almost dropped the keys. I didn't look back at the cabin until I hit the road, and even then, I only caught a quick glimpse of the doorway, dark as a mouth. On the drive home, I called my mom. She said she'd been asleep around 1 a.m., but woke up once, freaked out, with this heavy feeling on her chest and my name in her mouth, like she'd been about to yell for me. She asked why I was calling so early and why my voice sounded weird. I told her I'd just had a bad night and changed the subject. I still haven't told her what I heard. The photos of the prints are still on my phone. Sometimes I open them and zoom in on the tread, on that worn-down patch, on the way the path hugs the walls instead of wandering off toward the woods or the road. People I've shown have explanations. Prank, glitch, overactive imagination. Maybe I misremembered the frost from the day before. Everybody wants it neat. I let them have that. I know what I heard outside that door. I know I held my phone while something that sounded exactly like my mother asked me to open up and let it in. I don't do solo cabins anymore. Believe me or don't. That's what happened. This was last year in Chicago. I was working from home, ordering way too much takeout. My building has a locked lobby, so drivers usually call from downstairs. I barely talked to anyone in person back then besides delivery people and the occasional neighbor in the elevator. Most days it was Slack pings, email, and the buzzer. I liked the building because of the extra layer of security. The whole point of paying stupid rent was that random people couldn't just wander up to your door. You needed a fob for the lobby, another for the elevator, cameras in the entry, all that. One Wednesday, a delivery guy buzzed and used my full name. First and last, perfect pronunciation, which almost nobody gets right. I froze with my coffee halfway to my mouth. You know that feeling when someone says your name in a crowd and your brain just locks on it? It felt like that, but wrong, like hearing it from inside a closet. No one ever says my last name right on the first try. Even my boss screws it up on Zoom. I hadn't ordered anything. I knew that immediately because I've been trying to cut back on spending and junk food, and I made this dumb deal with myself that Wednesdays were no delivery days. So hearing delivery already didn't make sense. My first thought wasn't, oh no, stalker. It was, did I drunk order something on autopilot last night? Which is pathetic but honest. I said he had the wrong apartment. Silence for a beat, then, no, this is for you. You forgot a tip last time. His tone wasn't pissed, just flat. No accent I could place, but something in the way he said last time made my stomach tighten. I couldn't remember stiffing anyone. I overtip out of guilt, even when food shows up cold. So I started arguing through the intercom, telling him I always tip, asking what app, what restaurant, when. He didn't answer any of that, just repeated that it was for me, like he was reading a script. I checked every app, no recent orders. I had 3 different delivery apps, plus 1 pizza place bookmarked in my browser. Nothing. Last actual order was 4 days earlier. I told him through the intercom to leave it at the desk. He laughed. There's no desk here. And he was right. Our doorman had quit weeks earlier. That laugh wasn't like he just realized it. It sounded like he'd been waiting to say it. Like he wanted me to feel stupid. That's when the back of my neck started crawling. Him using my name was one thing. Knowing the building hadn't had a doorman for weeks, that meant he'd either been here recently or he lived nearby and paid attention. I tried to peek through my peephole, even though he was in the lobby 2 floors down, like somehow I'd see him in the hallway. My hand shook, but I told myself I was being dramatic. That creepy doesn't automatically mean dangerous. There's this voice that kicks in, right? The one that says, calm down, don't make a scene, don't be that crazy paranoid bitch who calls the cops because a guy sounded weird. I watched the security cam feed on my phone. He stood just out of frame, like he knew where the camera cut off. Only his shoulder showed, sleeve of a dark hoodie. No logo, no reflectivo veste, no termal bag. Just that shoulder, a sliver of jaw, and something pale where his hand must have been. He kept shifting like he was tracking where the camera was, staying in that dead zone like he'd practiced. It wasn't an accident. He knew exactly where to stand. That freaked me out more than anything he said. Every driver I'd ever seen looked straight into the camera, annoyed, holding up the bag, ringing the buzzer like they wanted you to hurry the hell up. This guy acted like the camera was a sniper scope. I took a screenshot of the feed anyway, zoomed in until the pixels broke apart, hoping for a tattoo, a ring, something. Nothing. Just fabric and shadow. I hung up and called a non-emergency police line anyway. I hated doing it. I could already hear the bored operator in my head asking if a crime was actually happening. The woman who answered sounded tired as hell. I explained the whole thing too fast, then again slower, trying not to sound hysterical. So he hasn't tried to break in? She asked. He's in a locked lobby? I said yes, but he had my full name and was lying about a delivery. She said they'd sent a car to drive by, told me to call 911 if he tried to force entry. And that was it. You can feel when someone mentally files you under overreacting female. It burned. By the time a squad car rolled past, he was gone. I didn't see him leave. 1 second that shoulder sat there in the lobby feed, the next it wasn't. No elevator ding I noticed, no door slam. The car slowed outside, lights off, then kept going. I stood in my kitchen holding my phone, suddenly aware of every window, every blind I'd left half open. I wound up making this stupid lap around the apartment, yanking on the locks I already knew were locked, pushing on the door hard enough to rattle the frame. The whole time, my brain kept replaying his flat voice. You forgot to tip last time. Like we had history. Like we'd already met and I didn't remember. I tried to work after that, but I kept jerking my head up at every delivery truck sound outside. I muted Slack and jumped every time my phone buzzed. At one point, my neighbor across the hall came home, and when his keys jingled, I actually grabbed a knife from the drying rack without thinking. I hid it behind my leg when I realized it was just him. I almost blurted the whole story out, but he barely nodded at me before going inside. Headphones on, door shut. I felt stupid and alone and wired. Later that night, I got an email. My food delivery account had 3 attempted orders I hadn't made, all scheduled for late-night drop-offs. Address mine, name mine, phone number, 1 digit off. The restaurant names were all places within a few blocks, nothing special. But the times, 12:30 a.m., 1:10 a.m., 3:03 a.m., were the kind of times you only pick if you expect someone to be half asleep or drunk or too embarrassed to make a fuss when you show up. Items were random, too, like whoever did it just clicked stuff, wings, a salad, bottled water. Not a real order. A test run. I sat there at my kitchen table with my laptop open, heart pounding so loud my ears hurt. Either someone had hacked my account and happened to pick my real address, but messed up my phone number by 1 digit, or someone who already knew my address was trying to get even closer by pretending to be a glitch. I checked my bank accounts. No charges. The orders had failed right at the payment step. Whoever it was kept trying to book a ride straight to my door. I screenshotted everything. Support blamed a glitch. The chat rep copy-pasted apologies, reset my password, explained how sometimes cards fail and orders auto-retry, like I hadn't already searched their help center. I spammed them with screenshots until they escalated it to engineering, which is probably code for trash. When I asked if they logged device info or IP addresses for failed orders, they dodged the question completely. Just make sure you don't share your login with anyone, they said, as if the problem was me handing my password out like Halloween candy. I called my building manager the next day, told him some guy had tried to get in claiming to be a driver and that the police had driven by. He shrugged it off over the phone, said, "Well, you didn't get in, right?" Then he reminded me the cameras weren't monitored 24/7 and that I wasn't supposed to give my fob to guests. I wanted to scream. Everyone around me acted like, because nothing technically happened, nothing was wrong. Meanwhile, I couldn't shake the picture in my head of some asshole in a hoodie, standing just outside the cameras' eye, practicing exactly how far he could go without anyone taking him seriously. The following week, I kept getting these tiny, almost nothing things. A hang-up call from an unknown number around midnight that didn't show in my call log. A text from an unlisted number that just said, "wrong," and then deleted itself before I could screenshot it. Could have been anything, could have been unrelated, but it all piled up in my head. I started sleeping with my bedroom door locked, which is pointless in a 1-bedroom apartment, but made me feel like I'd added one more layer between me and whoever might try that door. I know how all this sounds. Paranoid, dramatic, too online. But there's a difference between regular city sketchiness and someone targeting your specific 4 walls. I kept thinking about how smooth he'd said my name, like he'd practiced it out loud. How he knew about the missing doorman. How he deliberately hid from the camera. None of that is random. That's rehearsal. Now I meet every driver on the corner instead of giving my unit number, and I double-check every damn notification. Someone had been practicing how to get me to buzz them in.